Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 366 of The Team House. I'm Dave Park, here with Jack Murphy, and tonight our guest is Dick Thompson, retired Lieutenant Colonel, who wrote a couple books on MACV-SOG. The first one is SOG, codenamed Dynamite, the team leader's story. It basically reads like a journal. I'm amazed at how detailed it is. It reads like an action novel too. It's a lot of great stuff. And one of the things I really appreciated was like at the end of each chapter, you had kind of a lessons learned and everything like that. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dick.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Yeah. So, the book focused on the book focused on MACV-SOG, and obviously that was one of the highlights of your career. But you had a 21-year career. But before that, when you were knee-high, little Dickie Thompson, running around the neighborhood, tell us your origin story. How did you grow up, and what led you to the military?
I grew up in basically a military family. My mother's 5 brothers were all deployed to in World War II at the same time, and my father was also deployed. So they had everybody over there in World War II. After that was over, my father was also called back in to go to Korea. So I had a lot of exposure as a small kid growing up and hearing the family talk about war. And I became very curious. I asked a lot of questions. What is a squad? What is a platoon? What do they do? How do they work? So I was always asking questions about it. I spent a lot of time living at my grandparents' house on my mother's side while my father was gone. So I grew up kind of on a farm, but in a lot of woods. I had an opportunity to go out and spend a lot of time, in an environment like that. When my father got back, then we moved to a small farm, and I would spend hours and hours in the woods alone as a 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, watching animals, tracking animals, trying to figure out how can I be invisible.
Hey, what's up, guys? I want to thank our sponsor, PIA VPN. That's private internet access. You guys ever been at a coffee shop connected to their Wi-Fi and wondered just how secure you are? Turns out you're not very secure at all. It's like sending a private text message to a group chat. Everyone can see it. All of your personal data, from your passwords to your browser history, it's all out in the open. And I do not need my browser history out in the open for people. That's a problem. But the solution is private internet access. PIA is super easy to use, and the app protects all of your devices. It hides your IP address and creates an encrypted tunnel from your internet connection so no one can snoop on your data. And unlike a lot of services out there, PIA is completely transparent. They have a proven no logs policy, which means they never record or store your data. The part that I love best about PIA is I like watching The Office, and in the U.S., The Office is not available on Netflix, so I just punch in PIA VPN and I can watch Netflix. I can watch The Office on Netflix from here. You can change your virtual location to one of their servers in 91 countries and unlock new content, whatever you want to watch. You can check it out there, too. It's pretty cool. And you can protect your entire family with one subscription. So if you want to protect your digital life and get 83% off plus 4 months free, head to PIAVPN/Teamhouse and sign up today. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to you. That's PIAVPN.com/Teamhouse for 83% off plus 4 months free, and that's actually $2.03 a month only. So it's totally worth it. If you're in the market for a VPN, PIA is the way to go. just head back over to piavpn.com/teamhouse. You get 83% off plus 4 months free. That's $2.03 a month. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk at all. Protect your life. And thank you for supporting the show to all the fans out there. And thank you, PIA VPN, for supporting the show as well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
How can I walk up on a deer? How close can I get to them? What do their tracks look like? How do they behave? So I was learning the field craft like that. So I got a little older. I had a cousin, Carl, my age, who would come over, and we'd go out in the woods and play Army, camp in the woods at night. Eventually, we got to the point where I had a BB gun. We would shoot birds, cook them over our fire, and do the kinds of things, because we heard about Rangers. We'd do the kinds of things that we thought Rangers did. And so I formed a Ranger company, and I formed a Ranger company. Started out with myself and cousin Carl. We brought in some other cousins and expanded out beyond that a little, and then eventually brought in some people who were not related. But I became General Thompson, and we had our Ranger company. I still have that logbook today. A lot of the writing is faded, but it had people's names in it. It had the one court-martial that we conducted. I was a non-family member, and we had to let him go, so we court-martialed him, and he left. But we saw Darby's Rangers, the movie. That got us all fired up even more. So, and I used to hunt and fish. I grew up, firing weapons. So I was pretty good at shooting and hunting. And, just kind of got into that. And then when I was 13, I was sabotaged by Santa Claus. He brought me a chemistry set. And I used to watch Shock Theater and these other monster movies and things. So when I got the chemistry set, I started doing things like trying to swap brains between a bird and a frog and things like that. And at that time, if your parents or mother would go with you to the drugstore, the pharmacy, it was amazing what they would sell you. So I had syringes, I had all kinds of things that I got from the drugstore, and kind of grew up with a laboratory out in the barn. But I hadn't forgotten the Rangers, and I ended up with a scholarship to the University of South Carolina.
Dick, real quick, I want to stop you because there was something in your book. You talked about your very first MACV-SOG instructor in the barn there. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, when I was, I was about 6, I guess, or 7, somewhere around that age. And the way our house was set up, there was a dirt road that came from the highway, came right through the middle of our property, and separated our house from the barn. And, we didn't have running water, so we got water out of a well. So we didn't have indoor toilets or bathrooms. We had an outhouse, but it was on the other side of the road where the barn was. And my father bought a big turkey. In fact, when we were standing face to face, we were pretty well looking in each other's eyes. And he was very aggressive. He didn't want anybody on what he called his side of the road. So when I needed to go to the bathroom, I had to try to get into the outhouse before he could attack me. As he would see me, he'd come running at me, jump up on me, knock me down. And, so I complained to my father about that. And he told me, he said, he knows you're afraid of him. You got to let him know you're not afraid. I said, well, I am afraid of him. That joker knocks me down and pecks me. And he said, you got to let him know you own that side of the road too. And I said, he's bigger and stronger and faster than me. He said, but you're smarter. Figure out how to outsmart him. So that was kind of the beginning of my special operations training. How can I navigate and get to the outhouse and then make it back across the road without him knocking me down? And I finally decided I could throw rocks at him, hold him back with rocks. I ended up with a slingshot. I'd shoot him with a slingshot, but all kinds of E&E trying to get around him. Then payoff finally came at Thanksgiving. He was invited for Thanksgiving dinner, so I didn't have to worry about him anymore. But it really taught me a lot about how do you hide? How do you go from cover and concealment from one place to another, and get to the outhouse and then get back?
Yeah,
I learned a lot.
So yeah, thanks. So I'm sorry for interrupting you. So you go to college, and you're going to college for chemical engineering, correct?
Well, for chemistry,
Chemistry, okay.
My intent was to get a doctorate in chemistry, be a research chemist, and at that time, every day at 5:00 in the evening, the national news would come on, and there'd always be a segment about what was going on in Vietnam that day. And they kind of made it sound like we were really winning, and it probably wasn't going to last much longer. And in my mind, I thought it's going to end before I have a chance to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my parents I was going to take a break in school, enlist in the Army, and go to Vietnam, come back, and then finish school. My mother was not happy with that. My father thought it was pretty cool. But so I took a break and enlisted in the Army.
Mm-hmm. And you
very quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But when you went to go enlist, you actually you were headed to the Marines, though, right?
The Marine office, recruiting office and Army, they were side by side in a building there in town. But yeah, because you saw the Marines on TV all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all you heard about. The Army was there and they were doing something, but the Marines, it's like every other Marine's got a camera or something, and they publish everything. Excuse me. And so it sounded like they were the ones who were getting something done. So I thought about them, but after I talked to them, I went in the Army recruiters and I said, what do you got? And they talked me into going into the Army rather than the Marines.
Yeah, and you originally thought that you might be a chemical specialist, or a chemical.
Well, they had said, the Army recruiters had said, hey, you've scored really high on all these tests, and we can get you in the Army Chemical Corps.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, okay, I mean, that might be cool to make all these chemical weapons and different things. So I went in the Army and thinking about that. And then my first night down at Fort Jackson, went to sleep in bunk beds with 50 other guys in there, and about 3:30 in the morning, all the lights come on. There's somebody yelling, screaming, hollering, get out in front of your bunk. And I guess the people at the other end of the room were not moving fast enough, and I heard the the bunk beds starting to fall over on the floor because whoever this guy was, he was just turning the bunks over with people in them. I got out and I was standing in front of mine as he got down to where we were, and I noticed he was, I mean, he was my size. And I thought, wow, he's not nearly as big as he sounds, but he's a bad dude. And then I noticed, that black and gold Ranger tab on his shoulder, and I said, wow, that's a Ranger. That's what these guys are like. I mean, that's cool. I like that. And then, he took us to the mess hall, and we had to double time going over there, and we start with a Jody call about, I want to be an airborne Ranger. I want to live a life of danger and all. I mean, I was hooked by the time I got to the mess hall. I said, I'm only going to be here 3 years. I might as well be a Ranger for 3 years, and turn some bunks over and have a good time. So I started thinking that way.
Yeah. So you do you do a leadership prep course, which is they don't have it now, but when they identify you as somebody who's going to be a leader at AIT, right, the Advanced Infantry Training,
Right.
You go to a leader prep course, and then you do your infantry AIT. Now, here's my question, because this isn't something that happens really anymore. You did basic and then AIT, and then you rolled right into OCS, the Officer Candidate School. How did that happen?
Well, the drill sergeant I had in basic, he made me a platoon guide fairly quickly because I was, very fit. I learned quickly, and then I discovered one night that there was actually a manual, 22-5, that had all the commands that they were using as we marched around. So, I mean, it didn't take me long at all to go through there and see what the commands were, and, the preparatory commands, the execution command, and which foot to give them on. So the next morning, I started correcting the drill sergeants for a short period of time. Then I did a lot of push-ups because I could see when they were doing it wrong. I mean, if you give me the materials, I can learn it.
Yeah.
So anyway, you made me the platoon guide, and then, I had taken all kind of tests when I first came in, and my drill sergeant, said, you really need to think about going to OCS. And so I'm going to start putting in your file and pushing you in that direction. And then, that followed up when I was at AIT, and then I got orders to go to OCS at Fort Benning.
Were you happy about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was ready.
Yeah.
By then, and then when I got in OCS, and you got exposed to a lot of things there. Airborne was one, Ranger was one. All this different stuff you were doing, and the OCS company I was in was right next to the jump towers. So every day I was watching people come down in parachutes out there. So I requested to go to jump school. Requested to go to Special Forces, and I got orders for both of those. So as soon as I finished OCS, I went to jump school, finished that. I went to Fort Bragg, went through the Q course up there, became SS qualified, and, went on a team, was prepping to go on a mission to Africa, because at that time, the third group was targeted toward Africa, and I had also volunteered to go to Ranger School and Vietnam. So that came through. They sent me to the Ranger School, and shortly after that, the orders for Vietnam came down, and to 5th Special Forces Group, and I went there and discovered there was something about special ops that I really didn't know about.
Yeah. One of the things you talk about, which is something they used to do, but they don't anymore, was the quick kill course. They used to use the Daisy rifle for sort of the point shooting. Can you tell us about that? Because I don't know, that school went away
They don't do it anymore, but it was a very valuable school, right?
Yes. They told us, we're going to go out and do some training. We're going to do about 2 weeks of focusing on something that is called quick kill. So we went out to the training site, myself and a group of other young SF guys, and the instructor came out and he had a BB gun, BB rifle, and he threw about a 3 or 4 inch aluminum disc up in the air, and he just shot from his waist with the BB gun and hit it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're going to start with a disc like that, and then we're going to go down to this size, and then this size, and he kept getting smaller and smaller, and he's hitting him out of the air every time, without aiming. He's just
Right.
pointing it down and hitting him. Well, that's pretty cool. So we all got our BB guns and started shooting at the disc. Then they changed us over with 2x4s that had little 3-inch silhouettes on it, and you would shoot at the little silhouettes like that, and we got good at that. And then we changed over to M16, and we'd actually go down a trail on the range. That target would pop up, and you would use a quick kill. Sometimes people now still talk about it as point shooting. It's you're not coming all the way up here. You're shooting from down at the waist or chest level at the most.
Yeah.
But it's very fast.
Yeah.
And if you're within 20, 25 meters of a target, you're not going to miss it.
Yeah.
It doesn't take you long at all. And I still put on demonstrations now with SWAT teams, law enforcement. I still go back to Bragg and Campbell, the special ops groups, and I can still hit from there. In fact, if you're carrying a downport like most people do with a stock laying up there, I said, I'll hit you 3 times before you can even start to move your weapon up.
Yeah.
Too slow, the way you're carrying your weapon.
Yeah.
You pick a door open and go in a room and there's a guy there already pointing a weapon at you, you're going to die. He will get you if you're not ready to pull the trigger and hit the target.
How hard? I'm sorry. How hard was it to transition from BB gun to the M16?
It really wasn't hard in terms of hitting the target.
Yeah.
I mean, we had shot the M16. I mean, we'd done work with the M16.
Sure.
Just we hadn't tried to do the quick kill. And, and to jump way ahead, one of the things that happens with all the services is with your marksmanship training, whether it's a pistol or rifle, you spend all kinds of time on sight alignment, getting the right sight picture, and all of that. And that's great until your target starts shooting back at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then your stress level skyrockets. And when it does, one of the changes that happens is your vision changes. You can't see the sights anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking, trying to aim, but the sights are just blurred because your vision changes, so you can't really focus on anything until it's out beyond where your weapon is. But with the point shooting, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Because you're pointing, you're not using a sight picture like that.
Yeah.
So you get assigned to 3rd Group. You're prepped for Africa. You're disappointed because you want to go to Vietnam. You go to Ranger School. You get back and you find out that you are going to Vietnam. And
Right.
When you get to Vietnam, what was your first impression?
I had grown up in a world here in the U.S. and we have laws and rules of engagement and things that you can do. And I get on a plane and 20, 25 hours later, I step off the plane in Vietnam. And soon as I exit the plane, the smell hits me the smell is just very different. And I realize I'm in a different world,
Yeah.
very different world. All the noise, the chaos, vehicles running around, planes landing, taking off. And I also noticed that the people, the Vietnamese, were people where I could actually see the tops of their heads. I'm not very tall. I don't see the top of somebody's head very often when I'm talking to them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I could see theirs, and I thought, well, this is pretty cool. I'm at least as tall or taller than they are. A lot of activity going on, just a real adjustment. And the pilot had told us as we were getting close to landing, and he said, this is what's going to happen. I don't want to scare you, but when we get close to the airfield, I'm going to put us into a nosedive, and we're going to dive down toward the airfield. I'm going to pull us out at the last minute and flare out. We'll land, and when we hit the ground, don't unfasten your seatbelt, because I'm going to taxi really fast around to the area where we're going to unload. You need to be fastened in till we get there, and then when we say go, we want you to get up, and you guys move out the front exit doors, because the guys who are leaving are going to be coming in through the rear doors. So you're going out the front, they're coming in the rear, because we're not going to be on the ground but just a few minutes, because we are a prime target when we're sitting there.
Yeah.
For rockets and mortars to come in on us. So just the landing and takeoffs were really different than what I was used to.
So you get there and you get some really solid advice, right? Somebody tells you, they give you some good advice. And what was that advice?
A friend of mine had left for Vietnam about a month before I did. So he had been there. He's already assigned to a Mike force, but he got word that I was coming, and he linked up with me. We went to a bar, and he was telling me all about what's going on and how things work there. And he said, tomorrow you have to go in and fill out all kind of paperwork and forms and things like that. And at the end of the day, they're going to take you into a room, and they're going to ask you if you want to volunteer for SOG. And he said, whatever you do not volunteer for SOG. I said, I don't even know what it is. Why would I not volunteer? He said, if you volunteer, you're going to die. Just hear what I'm saying. You're going to die. If you don't die, you're going to get the crap shot out of you, and you're going to go back to the States as a nutcase. Mm-hmm. That's if they find your body. Do not volunteer for SOG.
Yeah.
So anyway, we hung out there for a while, and he said, I'll see you back here tomorrow evening. And so when I came walking in, he looked at me and he said, you did it, didn't you? I can tell by the look on your face, you did it. I mean, you are a dead man walking.
So when you go into that room, how did they pitch you? Like what was their big did they show you like a motivational video with guys coming out of the water?
No, I'm 21 years old.
Yeah.
And back at that time, we used to think that the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex up here, that its primary function in life was to hold your cranium up so that the front of your head didn't cave in. We found out later that this is really where risk assessment, decision making, all of those kinds of things take place. This is where the CEO of your brain lives. Mm-hmm. So when he looked, he had my folder and he was flipping through it, and he said, you volunteered to join the Army. You volunteered for airborne school. You volunteered for special forces, you volunteered for Ranger, you volunteered to go to Vietnam. I'm about to give you an opportunity to volunteer for the most important thing you will ever volunteer for. I said, you're about to ask me if I want to volunteer for SOG? He said, yes. Said, I like what I see here with you. You're perfect for this job. And I said, what do they do? And he said, I can't tell you. The only way you can find out what they do is you have to go there. But I can tell you this, that if you volunteer for SOG, you're volunteering to go anywhere, anytime, do anything, and not talk about it for 20 years. I'm 21 years old. My prefrontal cortex is not developed yet. I mean, he might as well be holding up a recruiting poster. Go anywhere, do anything, and not tell anybody for 20. I can do that. I don't know what it is you want me to do, but I think I can handle that. I volunteered for it.
Hey guys, our show is sponsored by GhostBed. Check them out, please. They make awesome mattresses, awesome pillows, awesome bedding. GhostBed provides high quality and super comfortable award-winning mattresses crafted in the US and Canada. Did you know that 60% of US adults report being too hot when they're trying to sleep? That's me. I'm a sweaty little baby. That's why we designed all of our products with cooling features so you stay comfortable and asleep all night long. Pair any of our mattresses with GhostBed's award-winning adjustable base and get the ultimate sleep experience. GhostBed rules the family-owned business, 60,000 plus 5-star reviews. They have sleep experts on staff with 20 plus years of experience. So if you have any questions, you can hit them up and ask them, maybe what kind of mattresses work for you. 20 plus year warranty. That's 2 times the industry standard. Free shipping and returns on mattresses. Most of the products ship out within 24 hours. They have in-house customer support and sleep experts chilling in Plantation, Florida. It rules. It's the best. They give you 101 nights risk-free to make sure that these beds are right for you. If you don't like it after 101 nights, you can send it back, full refund. When you purchase a GhostBed mattress, your comfort guaranteed. I'm reading it right now, and it's capital letters, guaranteed. Okay? They do the right thing, and they're a great company. If you're not sure which GhostBed's right for you, like I said before, you could take their mattress quiz online, or you can give a call to one of their sleep experts, and they'll help you with exactly what you possibly could need, what works for you and what doesn't. And the best news about this is, Team House listeners and viewers, you get an extra 10% off site-wide for a limited time. You just go to ghostbed.com/house and use the code HOUSE at checkout. One more time, that's ghostbed.com/house with the code HOUSE, HOUSE, at checkout for an extra 10% off site-wide. I want to thank GhostBed for their continued support. I want to thank all the fans that listen and watch for their continued support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for supporting the companies that help support the show. ghostbed.com/house for 10% off. Made in the US, made in Canada. Shout out to our brothers in Canada. They rock. Check them out. I love GhostBed. Thanks, guys.
Now, can you give us, a rundown on, all these guys were coming from SF, or they're all SF, they're all Special Forces. Why is the Studies and Observation Group, why is that different than the guys in the A camps and things like that? Like, what's different? What do they do? Or what did they do? Yeah.
One big difference is that our targets and our area of operation, they were in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for the most part, Vietnam, South Vietnam, was just a training site for us. We could go out and rehearse missions. We could go get some, Viet Cong and North Vietnamese soldiers to come out and train with us and shoot at us, so we could get used to being shot at, and we could shoot some people. But when you went across the border,
mm-hmm.
you went sterile, first of all. Nothing said U.S., no dog tags, no ID card, nothing that said that you were from the U.S. It provided plausible deniability for the president, since he was on TV on a regular basis saying, we're not in any other countries, we're just in South Vietnam. But all of our SOG missions were Laos, Cambodia, North Vietnam, the DMZ, Thailand, places like that where we were not supposed to be.
Yeah.
So if we were caught, then we could be executed on the spot as a spy. We were not covered by the Geneva Convention. So it was different for us. And then the number of enemy that you would be engaged with was pretty much insane.
Yeah.
I mean, when they tell you, I want you to take 6 guys and go out and find this battalion of North Vietnamese and attack them. Okay. They should be easy to find. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not sure how to get away from them, but I thought that'd be pretty cool to learn. So
Yeah. So you get assigned to RT Alabama, right, in Phu-Bai?
Yes. So when you went to Da Nang first, and that's where you found out what SOG was, found out everything was top secret, that you couldn't say anything after you walked out of that room. And when there were 3 camps, like the one at Da Nang, and then there were some smaller ones. And you got a code name, so that if you were captured, you could kind of prove or let the U.S. know it was you and where you were. And then I was sent up to Phu-Bai that had some of the teams up there. I put us closer to the Laotian border and North Vietnam. So there were about 5 or 6 of us that went up there at the same time, and everybody's name was called off by the sergeant major except mine, and they were told that they were going to go to a 2-week course to teach them how to be team leaders in SOG. And so I said, well, what about me? You didn't call my name. And he said, hey, you're a Ranger, Special Forces, you got all this extra training. I'm putting you to work. You're going to be assigned to a team tomorrow, and we're going to get you out doing your thing. So I thought, well, that's cool. Get started pretty fast.
Yeah. And so you get to your team, and what was that like when you first got there?
When I got where? I'm sorry.
To your team.
Yeah. Well, on a SOG team, it doesn't matter what your rank is. So I came into the team as an officer, and I was the only officer on the team, but I had to go out with the team several times and prove my ability to lead in combat and work with the SOG teams and learn all the little special techniques that they use before I could have my own team. So I went out as the second in command with an E7, and he was teaching me some of the things about being a leader. He was also evaluating me and vetting me to be able to be a leader.
Yeah.
So with Alabama, I went out 4 times with them. And then I was cleared to be a leader.
So you have this kind of like SOG had a wide range of operations, and like your first mission was wiretapping, right? So do they have courses for you guys back at the camp? Like, how do you if you're doing a pipeline hit or wiretapping or a rendition or a snatch and grab, like how do you learn these different skills?
For the most part, from operators who have done it before and know it. And sometimes if it's something really special, they may be bring in a CIA guy or somebody else who has the expertise. But the RT Alabama had done wiretaps before, so they knew how to do it, and I learned, as we went out and did it. I mean, it's not that complex once you see how it's done. The execution, actually getting it done without getting caught is the issue.
Yeah.
But in that particular case, first mission, we went out and we were also testing. Is it better to go in at last light, just before it gets dark? So once you get off the helicopters and get into the jungle, it'd be very difficult to track you. Or do you go in at first light so you have daylight to try to
Move.
get some space between you and where you go in? But we were going in at last light, and we're going to go down into a bomb crater. They dropped a very large bomb and blew a hole in the jungle canopy, just barely big enough for the helicopter to set down in. So we're approaching it, and the skids are almost dragging on the top of the canopy. The team leader's over on one side with a couple of people. They're standing on the skid of the helicopter over there. I'm on the other side with another American and a couple of indig, and we're standing out and we're just barely moving. And I was thinking, if an NVA is down there, he could take a rock and knock me off the skid. I mean, we were wide open, and we're just barely moving. So we get to the hole in the canopy, and the helicopter starts to settle down in toward the crater, and we get we're probably still 6 feet from the ground, and he can't get any lower. And I'm wearing 75, maybe 80 pounds of gear, and thinking, when I jump off this skid and go down 6 feet and hit, I'm probably going to break both legs. But that's what SOG people do.
Yeah.
So I get ready. I bent my knees to jump in, and just as I got ready to jump, I saw some movement on my right. About 10, 15 feet away was a NVA soldier with an AK-47 pointed up at me, and I thought, oh man. So instead of jumping into the crater, I jumped back up on the edge of the floor of the helicopter. Just as he pulled the trigger, stream of rounds came by. They missed me because I had jumped back, but they hit the American next to me, took his legs out from under him. So I grabbed him by the back of the harness as he was falling. I managed to pull him up, and took my right hand and hosed down the guy that had just shot at us. So I put about a half a magazine into him. Got the other guy up, blood's going everywhere. Now everybody's shooting, and the whole bomb crater comes alive because they had an ambush set up around it. So there's tracers crisscrossing inside the cargo compartment, somehow missing us. And I was just amazed that many bullets could be coming and not be getting hit. I went ahead and emptied the rest of the magazine into a tree in front of me where I could see muzzle flashes, and saw a guy fall out. But when I reached to get another magazine to reload, I had, my hand was just covered in blood, and that made it slick. The magazines were really packed tight into the canteen cover that I was using. I couldn't get the magazine out. And eventually I did get it out, but then my fine muscle control had deteriorated so much from the stress, I couldn't get it in the magazine well. Bullets are coming at me, and I'm trying to get the magazine in. Finally got it in so I could start returning fire. After I got the first one out of the pouch, then I could get the others without any problem. But I had just never experienced that level of fear. I had tried to imagine, what it would be like to have a bunch of people shooting at you. And, they're 15, 20 meters away at most.
Yeah.
Nothing but air between me and them. And, it's coming at us. You can hear the rounds hitting the helicopter. And, the door gunner's right next to me. He's got the M60 going. Two of my little guys are behind me, one on each side of my head with a Car 15 firing on automatic. I can feel, the powder burns hitting my face, as all that's going on. I'm trying to shoot. And it was probably lasted 2 or 3 minutes. It seemed like, all day, but because stuff was hitting everywhere. Anyway, we got out of that, and eventually we got back. And on the way back, I looked over at the team leader sitting on the other side of the helicopter, and he looked around at me, and when he saw me, he grinned like a horse eating sawbriar and started giving me a thumbs up. And I thought, he thought that was cool. Really enjoyed what we just did. And I don't know if I'm going to get to that point or not based on how I felt back there, but he's pretty excited about this. But then when we got back, we got off the helicopter, and he came over to me and he said, I'm going to tell you something, Lieutenant. If you don't learn to change magazines faster when people are shooting at you, you're going to die. And I said, copy that. I was pretty fast, but I didn't realize the impact of someone shooting at me, how much slower it was going to be.
Yeah.
I will start practicing. So one of the things I tried to do with the books is I wanted to show the reader, this is what I saw. You're looking through my eyes.
Yeah.
You're feeling my fear. You're seeing what I'm seeing. You see the mistakes that I make. You see the changes that I start making across time as I learn more and more how I'm changing the tactics that I'm using with the team, teaching them how to do things differently. And you can see a big change as you go across those two books in terms of how I led teams and how we fought.
For people who are familiar with SOG and have watched our shows or other shows, you probably know why there was an ambush set up. But for people who don't know, SOG was top secret for everybody except for the North Vietnamese, who, due to the political climate in Vietnam, the South Vietnamese had to be informed of everything that you guys did, and that basically was sent up to the North Vietnamese. So there was always, at least a company, if not a battalion, waiting for you guys, right?
Yeah. I see a lot of people practicing jujitsu, and the way people do that is that you and I are gonna have a match. So we get down on the floor. I get my best hold around you. You get your best hold on me, and then they say go, and then we start rolling around fighting. One of us trying to beat the other, and that's like a SOG mission. You get a whole bunch of North Vietnamese, 500, 1,000, and you put them out there in the jungle. Then you take this little 6 or 8 man SOG team, and you set them right in the middle of them.
Yeah.
And once they're in there, and then somebody says, go. So now you got to try to, accomplish the mission that you went there for. And then you have to try to get out. And the most difficult thing of the whole process is getting out, because now they all know where you are.
Yeah.
And, I used to liken it to, it's like kicking the top off of an anthill. How they just swarm out of the anthill. Once they find out where you are, they just swarm on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about how this book was through your eyes, and the opening of the book has a really intense scene with you grappling with North. Do you want to tell us that story?
Yeah, on one of the missions, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit
Sure.
more to what's in the front.
Sure.
The helicopter I was in was shot down, so we crashed on the LZ. I broke my back, fractured my spine, some vertebrae, some ribs, things like that. When we crashed, one of my guys had gotten shot through the thigh as the helicopter was coming down. Anyway, the three of us were all thrown out. My interpreter was with me. We were thrown out onto the ground, and all three knocked out. When I came to, I wasn't sure if I was dead or alive, but as my hearing started to come back, I could hear the rounds cracking by and see them digging up the ground. So I figured I must be alive because they're trying to kill me. So I started moving, and because there was a small bomb crater there, I started moving toward that. And then my guy that was shot in the leg, he couldn't go anywhere. So I had to go back, and I had to get him, drag him to the bomb crater, take his rucksack off, push him into the crater. I had to go back and get my interpreter, drag him to the bomb crater, push him in. And, they're steadily just coming after us and shooting. But the three of us got in the bomb crater, and then our what we call the cubby rider, the guys in a plane up above us, he called the helicopter was sitting there, kind of leaning sideways. The blade was almost hitting the ground when it would turn. The wheels were flattened out on it, but he talked to the pilot and told him he wanted him and the co-pilot to get out and let me get them in the bomb crater. The pilot said, no, we fix. And this is a very famous Vietnamese, SOG helicopter pilot. I mean, he was shot down 4 times. I think this was the 3rd time he was shot down. But anyway,
these are the QDs, right?
He refused to get out.
Yeah.
So we were in a bomb crater, and they're coming across this little grassy area trying to get us or get close enough to throw a hand grenade. And we're stacking them up like cordwood all around the bomb crater. And I don't know, at one point, the idea popped into my head that what I should do is crawl out there in the grass with them, because they're crawling through the grass trying to get to us. I should just go out there with them and snatch one of them up and drag him back into the bomb crater. And again, my prefrontal cortex wasn't working very well. It sounded like a good idea. I mean, I've just got a broken back. It's not a big deal. But I crawled out there, and I could hear one crawling kind of toward me. I reached out, I grabbed him by the shoulder, scared him half to death. But he had an AK, so he tries to shoot me. I got his AK, and then he got the muzzle of my CAR-15, and we're fighting and rolling around. I eventually shot him in the shoulder, but he was overpowering me. I just didn't have any strength left. And then for some reason, he turned loose of the barrel of my CAR-15 and just hit me as hard as he could right in the nose, just flattened my nose out. Blood went everywhere. Eyeballs were spinning around. But when he turned loose of the CAR-15, that gave me a second or so to reorient it. And then he realized I could see the look in his eyes that he knew he was dead, because the muzzle of the CAR-15 was, maybe 6 inches away from his cheek. And he just closed his eyes because he knew it was over. And I put a 5 or 6 round burst into his head, and it exploded. So I went back to the bomb crater, decided I'd try to get a prisoner a different day. So,
Yeah. That's so wild. And then how do they, you have multiple wounded, you're surrounded. How do they extract you guys?
well, eventually, using tactical air support, got the fire suppressed enough that they came in and dropped ropes from the helicopter that we fastened on, and they pulled us out. Captain On in the helicopter, we were sitting on a pretty steep ridge. He got up enough rotor speed to pick it up about a foot or so off the ground and just went over the side of the ridge and right on down to the bottom of the ridge and hit down there. Another aircraft came in and picked him and his co-pilot up down there. But yeah, it was, we came out a lot of times hanging on ropes.
Yeah. Yeah. Those Vietnamese pilots were something, weren't they?
Oh yeah. I mean, they were fearless and they were good.
Yeah.
They were flying the, CH-34 helicopters, the big fat ones.
Yeah.
They're very powerful.
Now, when you got to RT Alabama, you also were put on a hatchet force. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, they assigned me, so I had the double assignment there. They assigned me to, a hatchet platoon. So I had 50 guys, and, so I was the platoon leader for the hatchet force. But it ended up, the only thing I did with them was train. I never got to take them on a mission because they kept me so busy with the teams going out. So Alabama kept me busy, and then they shut Fubai down and sent teams all over. I was sent down to Da Nang to CCN, and that's where I picked up RT Michigan.
What was the mission of the hatchet force?
It was to have it's kind of like a ranger force, a kinetic, hard hitting impact to go in and, really, kick some booty with the enemy.
Yeah.
You had platoons, but you had companies too, so you could put a whole company in there.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of firepower.
Yeah. So they shut down Fubai. So you had to fob forward to RT Michigan, and then can you tell us about a couple of the ops there? Some of them were, all of them I'm sure are standouts, and they're in the book. But a couple that stand out in your memory?
Yeah, when I first got there, the previous team leader, 1-0, had been wounded badly, and so he was medevaced. So I took over as the team leader, and there was one other American there, a specialist fourth class, by the name of Bargewell, and he was a sharp guy. I thought, wow, this kid is really sharp. And I'm saying kid, I was 3 months older than him. So, but anyway, he had been with the team for a while, a lot of combat experience, really good. He and I got along really well. We had a mission to go in and actually support a hatchet force that was being put on the ground. We were going to be on the other side of the highway to make sure no one came from that side and attacked the hatchet force. But we were going to do it in a unique way. The 101st had a company right on the border with Laos. So the plan was we were going to fly in with the resupplies for the 101st for that company, dressed like 101st guys, get off the helicopter that way, and then the next morning we would go down with the water team down to the river to bring water back, except when we got there, all of our clothes and things would go in duffel bags. They would bring our clothes back. We would move off across the river, go into Laos, and maneuver over to where we needed to be. So that was a fairly unique way at that point to do an insertion. We also had artillery support. Only time I had artillery support because the 101st was close to the border. They could reach us. So I planned all these artillery targets and things out there. And we went in, eventually made some contact, and got in some big battles. And that's when I realized that if you stop, when they're coming after you, if you stop, what they tend to do, the NVA, what they tend to do is they're just like an amoeba in your dinner, and they just kind of like move out and just envelop you. They go all around you. Now you're in the center, and they just come in and get you. So because they were chasing us, we got into a rocky area, and I thought this is an area that it not only has some concealment, but it has cover. And we stopped, and they just assaulted and assaulted. Eventually, we were pulled out by ropes. I sent Bargewell and the other American that was with us and a couple of his team members. They went out, sent them out first. I stayed with the other 3 team members that we had. We came out last. Both of them were wounded coming out. I was hit in the back in the radio, and I was also hit with a big piece of shrapnel that hit my survival radio. I know if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can't see it, but the survival radio was, mounted right here in my pocket, right over my heart. So a huge piece of shrapnel buried itself into the radio, and that stopped it from burying itself into my heart. Got out, and all of a sudden we're hanging at 7,000 feet on the end of a rope, flying at 100 plus miles an hour, freezing to death, because we're soaking wet from all the sweat, and now we're 7,000 feet up, and it's cold. And my rope's rubbing back and forth on the edge of the floor of the helicopter, and I can see it starting to fray.
Oh.
And my radio's dead.
Yeah.
My survival radio's dead. I can't radio the pilot and say, it'd be nice if we could sit down somewhere pretty soon because my rope's about gone.
Yeah.
But we made it back anyway. So
this is a very nerdy question, but I have to ask, you're part of this, covert unit doing things that our country denies. You go to a conventional outpost where the 101st is. How do you coordinate fires with them and tell their RD people, hey, you can't ask who we are, but we might call you and we want you to fire into Laos?
Yeah. Well, you have the same issue with the helicopter crews, because the pilots get briefed on the mission. They know they're going to cross the river, but the crews, the gunner, crew chief, and the gunner doesn't know. But you can see the expression on their face when they see that river coming up, and they're still flying toward it. And and they're looking down and thinking, oh, geez, we just crossed into Laos or Cambodia or wherever it is. And then they get all their briefings. They can't say anything about it. But with the artillery, they're there, and I'm briefing them and saying, I'm plotting these targets on the other side of the river, but you won't be able to talk about this. I used them, and then when we had to get pulled out, I sent Bargewell and the other half of the team out first, and they flew back to the fire support base. So those guys are out there seeing this helicopter come from way over on the other side of the border, flying right toward them
Right.
and landing there. So they got pretty excited, and they all came out to see what was going on. And then my helicopter's coming, with myself and two of my guys hanging under it, and we're flying to it. So they knew now there's somebody else coming from over there too. And they set us down. The medics did a quick fix on my two guys and put us in a helicopter. And we were just getting ready to lift off. And I saw a guy running toward the helicopter. He's got his hand way up in the air. And he's got something in his hand. And we're lifting off the ground just as he gets to me. And I reached down and I took what he had in his hand. And then I realized it was a picture. Polaroid had just come out with this small version of the Polaroid camera. And this guy bought one just before he came to Vietnam. So he saw the first helicopter come in, and he ran back to his bunker, and he got his camera and came back out. So he was ready when mine came in. So I got the actual picture that he took of me coming in, hanging under the helicopter there. Had no clue
Do
who
you
he
have that
was.
picture handy by any chance?
I'm sorry?
Do you have that picture handy by any chance? Is it still?
It's in the book.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So I don't remember.
Oh, that's okay. Hey, no, it gives people one more reason to buy the book. I'll have to find it later.
The book is loaded with pictures.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to ask me that same question. If these were all classified, how did you get those pictures? Well,
Oh, I wasn't going to ask that. There are always pictures on classified missions these days.
yeah, I'm just going to look right here for just a second. I might be able to give you a page number.
Yeah, I'm just curious how the talk
Yeah,
goes.
on page 156.
156. I'm just curious how the discussion goes with like the base commander and the fire support officer saying, "Hey, we want you to turn your guns around, and we're authorizing you to fire into Laos if we call you."
Yeah, I wasn't privileged to what they were told at the time. I know the company commander kind of freaked out when I told him what we were going to do the next morning.
Yeah.
The fire support lieutenant that he had there freaked out when he said, "You're plotting targets on the other side of the river, on the other side of the border." And I said, "You're right, because when I need you to fire on those targets, I need you to have already computed everything."
Yeah.
When I say, fire target Monday, right 200, drop 300, I need rounds coming in on the target right then, because we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they just thought, wow, we've never seen anybody plot all these targets and name them like days of the week so they all make sense, and line them up ahead of time. I mean, that's what Rangers did, I mean,
Yeah.
I did that all the time, in the training and stuff. So, and used them once we got out there, because it could come in quick like that. But,
We talked about sort of the expanse of operations that MACV-SOG did, and then you had your wiretaps, your search and destroy, eldest son. Even though this was Alabama, eldest son was a very interesting project, right? Do you want to talk about that?
One of the psyops kinds of things that we did, black ops, is we would go into North Vietnamese ammunition caches and add some additional ammunition to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go in and put the 7.62 rounds for the AKs. We'd put the 51 calibers for the machine guns. We'd put mortar rounds. But these rounds would explode. So if we might put out a AK magazine, we have contact and we run, and we leave an AK-47 magazine laying there fully loaded. But one of those rounds, when it gets to it and the guy shoots, the whole weapon in his head's going to go away. So if I see that happen to you, now I'm afraid to fire my weapon.
Right.
And there would only be one in there. So even if you find what's left of the magazine and start pulling the bullets out and checking them, the rest of the bullets are all fine.
Right.
It's just the one that exploded.
Yeah.
But that has a big impact on whether or not you want to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we were told that, well, I mean, Jack has some firsthand experience with that, but we were told that they rebooted that for the global war on terror, only since there's a kinder, gentler military, or that they only fuse the weapons. Didn't you?
Yeah, there were also programs like in Afghanistan where the tag, track, and locate stuff became like a really big deal.
Yeah. But yeah, the ammunition wasn't designed to explode anymore, but just to fuse the barrel because we didn't want to hurt the enemy.
yeah. And, if you think even more recently, with what happened, with the Israelis,
Yep.
and all of a sudden cell phones are exploding.
Yeah. And
I mean, not
pagers.
cell phones, but the pagers are
Yeah.
exploding.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of stuff. You rig it so, man, nobody wants to touch one of those pagers after they see it explode.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now they're afraid of cell phones. They don't want to touch a cell phone. And, they planned and put those things out there way in advance of when, they were going to use them. But it has a major psychological impact on you. Something like that, blows your buddy's head off.
Yeah. And then you had like prisoner of war snatches.
We'd go in, prisoner snatches, go
Yeah.
in and snatch up a prisoner to bring out. So you had those. You had the ambushes. We'd go watch like the Ho Chi Minh Trail, set up where we could observe that, and when the trucks would start down the trail, we could call the L4s to come in and bomb them. So we'd do those kinds of missions. Sometimes it was a raid. We'd go in and raid a particular place. I went into a training site on a mission, and we crawled up on top of a mountain and haul it in because they're not going to chance putting that stuff on themselves. So they were teaching them, how to come after us, how to find us.
Yeah. When you guys would do like EPW or like snatches, were those generally targeted for a specific personality, or was it just, hey, go get somebody, the highest ranked person you can find?
Sometimes it was, to get a high ranking person. Most of the time it's just get somebody.
Get somebody.
So, in fact, one of the missions with Michigan, I set up an ambush, and I used C4 right in the middle of it. So we had the claymores and interlocking fire and everything, everywhere except for this one hole where maybe two people could be in.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would get is just a concussion coming from the C4 to stun them. Mm-hmm. We'd kill everybody else and then jump out on the trail and grab those two guys up, handcuff them, bag them, and drag them off. But, they psychologically, they had been told, that if Americans catch you, they're going to mutilate you. They're going to kill you, but they're going to mutilate you first and torture you and do all this stuff. And they were so afraid of being caught. They killed themselves sometimes.
Wow.
or their buddies would kill them.
Yeah.
Like the one mission there with Michigan. I mean, we had a guy that he's bagged, hands handcuffed behind him, and he got loose in the helicopter. At 2,600 feet, he went head first out of the helicopter. And when last seen, he was traveling about 180 miles head first into the jungle.
Yeah.
So he dove out of the helicopter, killed himself, rather than let us take him back.
Yeah.
Where,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have been tortured or anything.
Yeah.
But based on what he'd been told, he was not going back with us.
So, you cover about, not, I don't know, 8, 9 missions. And I don't want to talk about all of them because people should buy this book. They should read the book. And then what's the second book called, which you said is more intense?
It's just book 2.
Okay, book 2. So
Yeah.
the book is SOG, codename Dynamite. Link is going to be in the description below, but buy it at your favorite bookseller. It's a fantastic book. I mean, it's very, very detailed. But SOG, I'm sure, was one of the highlights of your career, but you had a very stellar career. Is there anything from SOG that you want to talk about that we missed? Because I'd like to talk a little bit about your career after that too.
I would just say that, at the time, SOG was the tier 1 most elite, organization out there. And sometimes people read about those missions, hear about the missions now, and they just say, you can't do that. In fact, my father-in-law watched a podcast that I was on with Jocko Willett, and he watched it on his iPad, and he's very sharp. He's a World War II guy. And my wife said, well, so what do you think? And he said, he didn't do that. If he'd done all that stuff, he'd be dead. There's no way he did that. And, when you read those stories or you hear what the SOG guys did, that's the typical reaction is you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I have people tell me, you couldn't carry that much weight.
Yeah.
Well, we did. I used to carry 50 20-round magazines. And I had somebody just recently say, there's no way you couldn't carry that much weight in ammunition, much less all the other stuff you put with it. I said, well, we did.
Yeah.
There was nobody coming to bring you a resupply. You had to survive. And in one of the missions in book 2 there, we were in contact with something like 21 hours, 22 hours before we got out. And you got to have a lot of ammunition. And in a lot of cases, you end up having to go out and take AK-47s off of dead bodies and use their weapons and ammunition against them because you've already used up all yours.
Yeah. For kind of the nerds out there who want to know this kind of stuff, what was your standard weapon loadout? And I'm sure it depended on the operation, but you guys were carrying cars. Did everybody carry a car generally? Do you guys have shotguns? Were there any
For the most part, in the beginning of SOG, because you couldn't have anything that said U.S., usually it was a Sten gun or Swedish K, was a non-American weapon. And, by the mid 60s, late 60s, U.S. weapons were so ubiquitous all over that part of the world, to have a weapon that had U.S. stamped on it somewhere wasn't that big of a deal. So I started carrying Car 15s. So they're relatively short. They have the sliding stock, and 20-round magazines to start with. But the North Vietnamese had 30-round magazines. That's a big difference when you engage another group, and they've got 10 more rounds in their magazines than you do.
Right.
I mean, very quickly, they can gain fire superiority over you because
Right.
you got to change out magazines at some point.
Right.
So, when my team, once I took over Michigan, pretty much the standard loadout for fragmentation grenades was 5 per person. You carried those in a canteen pouch or maybe a couple hanging on you. So 5 fragmentation grenades. I changed it to 10. So if I took a 7-man team out, we had a total of 70 frag grenades.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go through 70 frag grenades fairly quickly when there's that many people coming after you. Most teams carried 35 magazines. I carried 50, and one reason for that is I don't like to get shot at. So if you shoot at me, I'm going to shoot back.
Right.
So I probably shot a little more than the average team leader. Plus, it gave me some rounds. I could distribute some magazines if I needed to. If the other guys had run out. So you had that. You'd have a knife of some type. I usually carried my K-bar. And again, if you listen to the audio, you don't see what I have. This is my actual original K-bar that I carried on missions, and there are places in there where I talk about using this and how I used it. And this is the actual one I'm talking about in the book. So you had a knife, and most people carried a pistol of some type. I got to the point where I carried a high standard 22 long rifle pistol with an integrated silencer, so I could take out dogs, take out trackers and people without making too much noise. But my load bearing equipment averaged about 35 pounds plus. My rucksack, because I also carried the radio because I wanted to be able to talk. My rucksack was like 70 pouns or more.
How much water were you taking in there? Because some of those missions.
Usually we started out with, if it was a rainy season, you didn't have to take as much, but average was like 4 quarts.
Wow.
Of water, on your load bearing gear, compass, map, the survival radio I talked about. This thing's almost 5 pounds.
Yeah. Just
the radio.
Well, the water alone, isn't it, what is it, 2.5, 5 pounds per quart? I can't remember now.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It adds up very quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
In the book there, in book 1, there's a table in there where I've got listed. I broke gear down into the 3 levels. Your survival level that you had to, last resort, I've got to have this. And then the tactical level, mostly your ammunition and stuff like that. And then your mission stuff in the rucksack where you might have the wiretap or long range camera lenses or special equipment. If you're going to blow something up, you have a lot of extra C4 and stuff. But I had it so I could drop the rucksack, I could still fight. If I lost my load bearing gear, I could still survive because I had a knife. I had an extra, I had a bandolier around my waist of magazines that would still go with me if I dropped everything else. Compass was on me. So a map was in my pocket. So I had these different levels, and it's all broken out in there, and it also talks about how much they weigh, just to kind of give you some idea.
Yeah. Now, you had this 21-year career, and I want to ask you, you're in this very secret program. That's people are in secret programs now, but
because of social media, because of things like that, people are more aware of what's out there these days. But you have this career. Do they give you a cover story of like people obviously know you're in Vietnam and up until 1988, so you're there when a lot of people, there are very few, I assume, Vietnam vets left in the military near the end of your career. What, like, when people say, "What did you do in Vietnam?" What can you say?
Well, when I left SOG, I came back to the States. I went to went to the Rangers, and so I had 40 other instructors that I was with that all had combat experience. They've all been to Vietnam, and that helped us support each other. But when they would ask me, I went to Vietnam and I was in the 5th Special Forces Group.
Okay.
I had an SF combat patch on, and I was in Special Forces, and we did a lot of raids, ambushes, and different things. But you couldn't mention the word SOG. You couldn't say we did those things over in other countries. And, after a while, people just, stopped asking you things like that. They just see your combat patch and assume that, you were just in an SF group.
Now, did the Army ever tell you, okay, this is officially declassified, and give you an official read off and rollback, or did you just kind of have to figure it out when you could actually start talking about it?
Mostly kind of figure it out. I mean, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. When I volunteered for SOG, I had to sign a voluntary statement that I was volunteering to go anywhere, do anything for 6 months or 6 missions, whichever came first. And then I had to sign a separate agreement, a non-disclosure agreement, that I wouldn't say anything about SOG, anything about going into other countries, or anything with SOG for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, once SOG shut down, then it was 20 years before you're supposed to be able to say anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like you said, after you leave Vietnam, you go to Ranger School to Dahlonega, right? And what was that like for you? And I'm sure Ranger School was very different back then than it is now.
Yeah. Back then, we only had to feed you 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
And that's if, when you were out on patrol, if whoever the patrol leader was when we requested resupply, if he remembered to request food. So if he got carried away on ammunition and smoke and all that kind of stuff and forgot to ask for food, there wouldn't be any food in the resupply that day. Or when the team went down to pick up the supplies from the friendly partisan, if they forgot to ask for the food, because it would always be separate from the ammunition. So they would very quickly hand you all this ammunition to carry back to the patrol. But if you didn't ask for food, they didn't tell you, oh, it's over here. So you would go back to the patrol with no food. So you didn't get anything to eat that day.
I can't imagine that their peer evaluations were that good. But it was also now it's a leadership school. It's under TRADOC, but back then it was still very combat focused, right? Very preparing
combat and leadership. But one of the things back then, they wanted you to be an E5 or higher, to come. They wanted you to have a certain amount of time in the military before you came to Ranger School. They wanted you basically to show up there and demonstrate that you could do all this stuff and that you could tough it out. and make it through everything. And then they started backing away on, at least when you were not out in the woods on patrol, they had to give you 3 meals a day. Couldn't drop you for more than 50 push-ups at a time. Couldn't make you low crawl from the classroom down to the mess hall, down the asphalt as a company. So, I mean, there are a lot of, things like that that were just hardship things
Yeah.
that they started taking out. And, it's still tough to go out there for that long.
Sure.
And now you actually go through a pre-ranger course before you go to ranger school. And if you're in the 75th, you have to go through the selection thing to get into the 75th, and then once you're in, you have an opportunity to volunteer to go to ranger school.
Yeah. And back then, also, one of the things you mentioned was that all the instructors had to be combat veterans, right?
Right. Everybody was a combat vet. And, when I went up there, and actually the Dahlonega is now the 5th Ranger Battalion.
Right.
So,
right.
So when I went up there, I created and stood up the Halo team, trained the Halo team, led the Halo team, did demonstrations all around, Halo. I actually started a parachute club at the North Georgia, what was then North Georgia Military College, that's there in Dahlonega. Started their parachute club back up, trained the students, threw them out. I put in, Halo missions into not the training that the students got to do, but that they would be out and get a message they had to pick up a pilot that had been shot down. And I would parachute in, they'd see my parachute coming down, they'd have to come find me. So we did a lot of things like that. We worked on tactical use of Halo and more advanced tactical procedures and techniques like we used in SOG. I just didn't say that's where it came from. We actually went out and set up desert training, trained the 82nd and some other units in desert warfare before they made their first trip to the Middle East. We set up, and I wrote a lot of the training and things for the desert phase of Ranger School. So for a period of time, there was a 4th phase of Ranger training that was actually in the desert, and it was desert training. And they eventually took that out, but that was in there for a while. So I did a lot of things there in addition to just, train the Rangers.
Yeah. And then when you left there, you went to Second ID in Korea, and they didn't have a Ranger company there at the time, so that was kind of your initiative, kicked that off.
Right. I talked to General Emerson, the 2nd Division commander, before, because I went en route to Korea. I went through the infantry officers advanced course at Fort Benning. And so when I got orders going to Korea, I sent him a letter and said, here's my background. This is what I want to do when I get there. I can give you a Ranger company of your own that you can use that can do anything that a Ranger company can do. He was Special Forces. He got all excited about it, so gave me a company. And when I first got there, I started training them, in everything from being picked up on ropes to, helicopter assaults, things like that. And also, we became the quick reaction force for the nuclear sites. If any threat developed around a nuclear site, there were periods of time when we were on a 30-minute alert to launch and go there. But when I first went down to where our launch site was, when I saw the foot lockers that had the live ammo stored in it, I told my first sergeant, I said, I don't feel good about our ammunition at all. I'm looking at those foot lockers. It looks to me like, based on those steel bands that are around them and how rusty they are, no one's looked at those magazines in there in a long time. Get some cutters, open one up. And he said, "Sir, they're court-martialed. You're going to get court-martialed if you open one of those. Like, you can't get the cutters."
Yeah.
I'm going to open these. I'll open one, and we'll see what that one looks like. And then based on that, we'll decide about the others. The magazines were so corroded. I mean, you could barely get the rounds out of the magazines. Take a screwdriver and pry them out. I mean, we couldn't have, nobody's weapon would have fired. I mean, we'd have been standing there, with the blades turning, waiting on us to get on the helicopters with no ammunition to go. So anyway, I got that resolved. And then, based on my training, it was, you got to rehearse, you got to practice. So we're going to go out and make an assault into, one of the sites and see how that goes. It didn't go well at all because when we got to the landing zone, it was trees.
Yeah.
For 20 years, they hadn't done anything to the landing zone. Trees had grown up in, so we couldn't land. And all the sites were like that. So created a pretty big mess. I mean, it wasn't my fault. I just happened to be the one that said, I want to test this stuff out.
Right.
But I had a good time in Korea. It was, there were all kinds of competitions. There was something that the division commander had put together called combat football, ferocious game. And my company won it both times while we were there. We won the division championship. We won the taekwondo, championship. We won the infantry platoon and stuff championships. So we were selected to put on a demonstration when the president came over. We put on a Ranger capabilities demonstration, for him that was pretty impressive, and he really liked. So we did a lot of things. I had a great time with it. And then I came from there back to Fort Bragg and ended up in G3 and eventually with the emergency readiness deployment team, where we would test out the Ranger battalions and the Special Forces battalions. We would go into them at 1 o'clock in the morning, hand them a set of orders. You are now activated, 2 hours, the wheels up. We'll give you the briefing on the plane is what your mission is, where you're going, and then evaluate their capability to actually do it.
And how was that for you?
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Because I was back, and the way I felt, I was back with my people.
Right. Right.
Rangers, those are my people.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to be willing to go out on these. All of these things were classified. When they were going to happen, where it was going to take place, and what happened when you got there. And we went to some cool places, and I enjoyed that.
And then in '79, you Wait, am I getting ahead here? You became a teacher, an assistant professor, right? and ROTC. No.
Well, sort of, yes.
Okay.
My assignments officer called while I was at Bragg and said, how would you like to go to degree completion to complete a master's degree? I said, well, that sounds pretty cool. So as I thought about that, I decided if I was going to go to school and work on a master's, why not just get a doctorate? If I could find the right school
Yeah.
that would give me credit for residency time while I was working on the master's, and it was a school that had an ROTC department that I could, when I finished the master's degree, I'd be assigned to the ROTC department. That would give me enough time to finish the doctorate while I was there. So I did that at the University of Georgia. So I got the master's degree, started working for the ROTC department, finished my doctorate, while I was there, and started working on some special ops stuff. What happens if you have to go for a long period of time without sleep? So, and then they sent me to the Command and General Staff College out at Leavenworth. And from there, they assigned me to the Airland Battle 2000 team, which was figuring out how we were going to fight war in the 21st century. So I had done a lot of research on sleep and high-performing leadership. So they put me on that, and eventually I started going around briefing the NATO countries on this is how we're going to do special ops in the 21st century. And so that, that was fun.
Can I ask you, what was it like? Because this is 79, so I'm assuming like morale's getting a little bit better post-Vietnam, but it's still not super high. So what is it like being part of an ROTC at that time?
At that time, particularly at University of Georgia, it was fine.
Yeah.
People liked the military there. Georgia was a land grant college, so at one point in its history, if you were a male and you went to Georgia, you had to be in ROTC the first 2 years.
Oh, interesting.
But that went away, a number of years back. But so it was voluntary. You could join. They had a strong program. We had a ranger company within the program there. And I was the advisor trainer for the ranger company. And, we got along well with people on campus with the exception of the Air Force ROTC. I had a little friction there. I had to be careful because my guys would get so fired up. And they'd want to go over and steal their little airplanes and things and, create an issue. But that was good. And then, I went to Leavenworth and worked out there. And then eventually I got a call from the assignments officer again. It said, how would you like to go back to Georgia and be, we call these ROTC departments battalions now. So you would go back there and be the battalion commander. And I said, why? Why you offer me this? I said, well, it's always been an 06 position, but the Army's changed it to now it's an 05 position. And Georgia says they're not going to accept an 05. And every 05's name that we sent down there gets rejected for some reason. And then we remembered you. You already been there once for an assignment. you got a master's and a PhD from their university. You meet all the education, requirements, the experience requirements. They can't say no to you. So I said, well, try it and see. So they took me, and I ended up having that as my, final assignment in the military.
That's great. I mean, it's kind of a nice way to ease out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then post-military, like, what did you do? 21 years, and then you're out, and then go fishing, or like, what did you do after that?
Well, I'd always thought the training and things that we did in the military were pretty cool. Before I got out, I started using some leave and going to some civilian corporate type organizations and saying, let me come in and do some leadership training, team building, whatever. And, so I was doing a little bit of that before I actually got out, and the civilians loved it.
Yeah.
So I started a company, High Performing Systems, where it was executive leadership, and strategic planning and all that kind of stuff, team building. And in the 90s, outdoor training was big. You take a corporate group out into the woods and you have them move across ropes, bridges and stuff in the treetops. You have them rappel off a cliff, whatever. I mean, what better job could I have given my background?
Yeah.
So I would take them out, but they would have that kind of training, but then I would pick design obstacles that mirrored some problem they were having with their team. And so I'd take them out, they'd have to engage, that obstacle. And at some point, somebody would say, we're doing the same thing, the same issues that we have every day at work.
Mm-hmm.
And we overcame it here, and we got through this obstacle. Why can't we do that at work? So then, I'd work with them on, okay, this is how you do that.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing all that, we would be putting their strategic plan together, or building their executive team, or, things like that. And they loved it. But, by the time, the 2000s came along, everybody said, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. What else you got? I don't want to, jump off a cliff or whatever. But,
right.
Then more of my work became focused around stress, decision-making under stress. So working with law enforcement, continuing to work with, special ops, working with, nuclear facilities is very stressful in the control room. And those guys in there need training, and doing a lot more with vets, because vets need some help. You need somebody you can talk to that knows what you're talking about.
Right.
Because vets tell me all the time, I'm there in the VA, I go talk to Dr. whatever his or her name is, and when I'm trying to explain to them what I'm experiencing, I can see it's going right over their head.
Right.
They have no clue what I'm talking about. They've read some stuff in a book, they've never experienced it, so they don't know what I'm talking about. So, I do a lot of counseling and stuff with the vets, do different programs for them. So it's been a big part of our organization over the years, too.
One of the things that's really been highlighted after the global war on terror is, veteran issues, post-traumatic stress, things like that. After Vietnam, there was this big public scare about post-traumatic stress, right? The movie that, made for TV movies about a vet, like having flashbacks and killing people in the office, stuff like that. What kind of resources, were there resources for you guys back then? How were guys dealing with it? I mean, you know, obviously it's become a lot more acceptable to talk about now, things like that.
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, if you wanted to end your career, you know, get diagnosed as having PTSD.
Uh-huh.
Particularly if you wanted to be in special ops. I mean, special ops. I mean, you have to be physically fit across the board.
Right.
So, like hearing, for example, if you have significant hearing loss, and back in those days, we didn't have the headsets.
Right.
You didn't have anything except air. So, trying to maintain, you know, excellent hearing, it was very difficult because CAR-15s are very loud. Frag grenades are very loud, explosions, all that kind of stuff. But if you were diagnosed with hearing loss, you couldn't be in Halo anymore. You couldn't jump. You couldn't be special ops. So there were all kinds of things like that. It's not even PTSD. You know, I used to pull shrapnel out. If I could get it out, I didn't say anything about it.
Right.
You know? And a lot of people did that.
Right.
Because you don't want to have to go and not be special ops anymore. And then we kind of moved to a phase where we talked about PTSD, but it was still, you know, once it got on your record,
Right.
you know, regardless of what they were telling you, you were kind of at the end of the road. They're trying to do a better job now, but I don't think the people who are working with the military quite understand. We all have a limit. You know, I mentioned to you earlier that when you signed up for SOG, you signed a statement that said 6 missions or 6 months, whichever comes first. So there was a recognition that these things were going to be very stressful. But in reality, you could go out on the first mission and come back and say, I can't do that anymore.
Uh-huh.
I had no clue. That's what
Yeah.
it was going to be like. And you could get off the team and get another job within SOG where you are not an operator anymore, and still, you know, can continue to work. You just wasn't going outside the wire and doing things or across the border. So, you know, I do, like I said, I do things with groups of vets. I've created an assessment that I call the Arsenal 7 Best Practices of Stress Resilience. And nowhere in that questionnaire does it ask you, have you considered harming yourself in the last 2 weeks? Have you considered harming someone else in the last 2 weeks? I mean, if you go to VA and you take a questionnaire, it's going to ask you that. You know, but
Yeah.
Arsenal goes through and you never see that kind of question in there. You know, but it can still give you an indication of where you are, give you a snapshot of this is where you are right now. And here's a list of things you need to go do that's specific to you based on how you answered the questions.
Yeah.
And the Navy is using it more and more. I just had a Marine group order a bunch of them this past week, and it's spreading because they see it's a way to let people help themselves and get them help without them destroying their career.
Where can people find that if they're interested in it?
It's on my website, but I can.
What's your website?
I'll send you the.
Okay, we'll have it. We'll have your website and the link below. But for the people who are listening, do you want to give them your website?
Yeah, it's just hpsys.com. www.hpsys.com.
Hotel Papa
when you
Yank.
get there, you'll see the arsenal or how you can get to the arsenal. But yeah, we can put.
Fantastic. Yeah. Before we get to question, is there anything that we've left out tonight? Anything that we didn't cover that you feel like we should have?
I mean, we're getting into some things now that, I have a lot of passion around. I have a lot of passion around special ops stuff.
Yeah.
But also around the operators
Yeah.
who have to go out and do that and then live with it afterwards. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds cool to go out and do it, but you pay a price.
Sure.
And the more times you go out there, you guys know it. You can only kick so many doors down, before you get blown away, or before you mentally, can't do it or have difficulty going forward. But there are ways to approach that. There are ways that you and I can work together. When we're working with other groups, we put a lot of emphasis on buddies. In Ranger School, you have a Ranger buddy, and you and your Ranger buddy have to take care of each other. I watch you, you watch me, and I take care of you, and you take care of me. And I do the same things even in corporate America. I put them in buddy teams. Every day when you come into work, you check out your buddy. And if you're having an issue, like you stayed up watching the football game last night, and maybe you drink a lot of beer, and you're not at the top of your game this morning, you tell your buddy, keep an eye on me. There's some decisions and things I have to make today. Kind of, watch me. If you see me, getting a little wacky or whatever, take me off to the side and let's talk.
Are there things that you would say, that are basic or common knowledge in the military and military leadership that the civilian world just straight up misses?
When I got out of the Army and started doing the corporate work, I never said I was in the military, because if you said you were in the military and you recently retired, all of a sudden in corporate America, that meant you had your philosophy of leadership was to be a dictator.
Right.
You boss people around, you jerk them around. When I tell you to do something, you say, if I tell you to jump, you say how high. And that was people's general view of what the military was like and what military leadership was like. So I didn't mention military until 9/11. Once 9/11 happened, all of a sudden, if you were a military person, that was great, man.
Right.
Thank you, appreciate your service. But before that, they just had a different philosophy. And later there'd be times when people would find out that I'd been in the military, and then they'd say, "Wow, you're not what I expected. I'm just surprised that you were in the military because your leadership style is so different."
They probably see Full Metal Jacket and think every day is basically like boot camp or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But would you say that there are things that the military does well that civilians, like a civilian organization, when it comes to like leadership and team building, just often don't get? That like you're applying very simple principles that are very simple to you that seem magical to them.
Yeah, I think in the military we understand about teams and teamwork and working together, particularly as you move towards special ops, but not just special ops, just in other parts of the military too. But understanding we function as a team, and we can do things quickly. Just think about, we in the Army, we can pick up a brigade-sized unit, take them to the other side of the world and have them operating, within a few days. I mean, it's unbelievable the size unit we can move in such a short period of time, and they hit the ground running. And you talk to a corporate group about moving that much stuff. I mean, it's just beyond their comprehension.
Yeah.
We know how to organize. We know how to plan. We know how to actually carry things out and make them happen. And to be honest, one of the things when I'm talking to vets, counseling, and they say, I know how to do Army stuff. I said, that's right. And what you don't realize is you have this tremendous skill set that can happen. Well, I know they don't want me to go shooting, but I'm not talking about shooting.
Right.
You know how to plan, you know how to organize, you know how to execute, you know how to lead, you know how to take care of people. All of those things are extremely valuable out in the civilian world. And you have all of that. You just have to take off the OD uniform and put on your civilian clothes and go do that. It works. And that's skills that you have, and you can go out and get a job, and you might have to rephrase what the skill is that you have, so it, civilians understand what you're talking about. But you didn't waste all that time in the military. You learned, even from the things that were stressful to you. You learned how to operate under stress.
Yeah.
And you also learn things not to do. You learn that, if you put your hand on a hot stove and it burns, you don't have to put your hand back on that stove again to know that it's going to burn.
Yeah.
You learn fast from things like that. And that's needed out in the civilian world, particularly now, because most people don't want to work. They don't even want to go into work. They want you to pay them, but they don't want to have to go to the office or wherever it is that they're supposed to work.
Right.
I mean, and that's a real issue.
Yeah.
Particularly for the younger ones.
Dee, did you say we have some questions?
We do. Give me one moment. From Matt Gavin, thanks for sharing your experiences tonight, sir. What was the most selfless, heroic act you saw during your time in the Army? Thanks, gentlemen. Always a good time.
The most selfless act. Well, I think there are things, particularly in combat, you see it all the time. I mean, with the assistant team leader I had, Bargewell, that I mentioned earlier. What I didn't mention at the time was Bargewell was a Spec 4 when he started working for me. He retired as a 2-star general. He commanded, Delta, every special ops thing out there. He commanded before he got out.
In just the last interview we did with Dave Grange, he talked about Bargewell being a squadron commander in Desert Storm.
Right. I mean, he was awesome, but he was fearless and smart and everything. But he was selfless. I mean, he got a distinguished service cross because he didn't like being shot at either. And when a group of NVA fired a B-40 rocket right into the middle of the team after I had left, wounded everybody. Big piece of shrapnel went through the cheek on this side, lodged behind his eye on the other side, cut an artery inside of his nose, and then they assaulted. He stood up with an RPD machine gun and took out 20 of them. Just stood there and just hosed them down as they tried to assault. And then they tried it again, and he took out just about that many again to protect his team and got the team out. I mean, that's the way it was. If you're my team, I'm not leaving you behind. I'm going to take care of you. And I mean, I could go on and on just talking about him and things that he did like that, but just seeing other people, you know, I had people who, you know, violated an order to come in and try to save my team. I mean, they were told, don't dare go over there. There's too many of them. And they came in anyway and got shot down, and 2 of them were still missing in action. I mean, but there were things like that going on all over Vietnam every day, where people were just, you know, putting their life out there on the line to save people, take care of them. So just amazing what people do.
Yeah. D, anything else?
Yep, we have a few more from Rick Redu. It sounds like Dick was there around the time my father was also in MACV-SOG. Would you happen to remember a tall, mustached man named Ty Redu? Might have gone by Toby at the time.
I almost remember the name, but I'm not sure. One of the things that happened in SOG is, even if you were at the same camp, like you were at Da Nang, at CCN, the teams were coming and going so much, and there was a lot of compartmentalization going on. I don't want to know what your team is doing. I don't want you to know mine, because if one of us gets captured, we don't want to be able to compromise the other team. So there's 34 people who were killed that were I considered friends or teammates that I knew during that 12 months, but there were 70-something people actually killed. I just didn't know the other.
Right.
I just didn't get a chance to see him or be around him much. I might have seen him in passing, but I'm sorry, I don't remember that particular person. But if he was at SOG, my feeling is he's an American hero.
Yeah, and just a bit more, he added, he was taken from us last April, and he was a wonderful father and man. So thanks, Rick. Couple more. Was there any thought at the time that MACV-SOG would become something bigger or a unit unto itself after the war? Any discussions about that? Obviously, no one could have foreseen it was a forerunner to Delta and JSOC, etc. Just curious if anyone was talking about MACV-SOG serving in the theaters besides Vietnam and becoming an MOS in the Army. And that's from Bill Gage.
They didn't discuss it with me, but I was a little too low on the totem pole. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was discussed, but I didn't hear it. And my focus was just mission, is go out, do the mission, make sure we came back. But that wouldn't surprise me if at some point they were talking that way. Got you right. They did put together, Delta Force. When I was at Bragg, as I mentioned before, when I was up there, I had a chance. Dick Meadows came. He had been my boss and a good friend, and he came to me when they wanted me to be part of Delta Force, help with the selection process and be part of Delta. So I had an opportunity there, but a lot of the SOG guys ended up over there, and he was one of them. He also contacted me right after I got to Dahlonega, the Ranger Department. Told me I was getting orders the next day and I'd be gone for a while. The orders were canceled because of some things that were happening at Fort Benning, but that was, I had been chosen to be on the Sante team, but didn't get to go because of some flap that happened down at Benning. Not about me, just because there were several of us all of a sudden being jerked out with no notice, no reason for why we were being pulled out or what we were going to go to do. So anyway.
All right, one last one from Corbin. Was there any kind of tactical fingerprinting attributed to LZ ambushes?
You could see the change across time in the knowledge of the NVA. They became smart enough fairly soon to recognize that if a helicopter came out of nowhere and landed in a clearing out in Laos or Cambodia or North Vietnam and then took off, they probably put a SOG team out there. Mm-hmm. And then they eventually started putting towers on mountaintops where they could see a valley and see where, if a helicopter came and landed, see where it was. They started putting people they call trail watchers out in different places where they expected that somebody might come in to watch. They started doing a lot more efficient work with triangulation of radio signals to locate where you were to be able to come. They started doing a lot better job of having spies in the camps and getting that kind of information sent out to the field. So they became more and more sophisticated, and we were trying to become more sophisticated. So we might have 3 LZs picked, and we would go to the first one and sit down, and we might or might not get off the helicopter at that one, and we'd go to the other 2, but one of those 3 we'd get off on, things like that, just to try to confuse them.
One of the things you mentioned in your book, and you know, like, so the Americans were totally in the dark about MACV, but you mentioned like when Mad Dog Shriver got killed that there was an announcement in North Vietnam that he had been killed, and it was like a celebration. Like, how did it? You know, he's somebody who nobody in America knew who he was, obviously. You know, how did it feel for you guys to know that like they knew who he was, and you know it was public knowledge?
Yeah, they knew who most of the 1-0s, the team leaders, were, and most of us had a dossier on us, so they had a lot of information. When you get into book 2, I don't want to give it away, but there's a place in book 2 that will give you chills when you read it because of what they knew and who talked to me, who called me on the radio and talked to me, and what they said.
Yeah.
Oh, that was you. Like, I've read that story in other books.
Well, didn't John tell
John? I think John Plaster wrote about it in his book.
Oh, I thought John Meyer also mentioned that they would call out people's names on the radio at times.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. They read the whole list of names.
Oh man.
Yeah.
One name they should not have been able to know, and they knew it.
Yeah. 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 It's crazy. It's crazy how absolutely effective you guys were, considering the intelligence. You know, the intelligence leak that they had at headquarters.
Yeah.
You know, the Partner Nation leak. But we'll probably have to have you back for book 2.
Okay. Yeah, book 2's loaded. Got some really powerful stuff. But you need book 1 to kind of set the stage and understand everything so you can really see the changes in tactics and techniques and things like that. And there's a lot more in there on stress. And and I had started out in chemistry, but shortly into SOG, I started changing to psychology, trying to understand how to lead mercenaries in combat, how to engage the North Vietnamese, how do you engage people in general. And there's a section in book 2 where I talk about the human reaction to combat. There are things that humans do, regardless of where you're from, in combat, that give you away. And once you start to learn what those are, it gives you an advantage going against the force. You know things they're going to do. It's just instinct, and people do it unless you spend a lot of time trying to train it out of you. So that stuff is in there pretty heavy in book 2.
Is that it, T? Dick, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity just to share some things like this, to be able to talk to someone that understands, what I'm talking about, and being, given a platform. People, vets, can be helped. They can do a lot better, and some of the things that help you get better are not complex. You just need somebody to share it with you and say, try this, watch this, here's some things. Keep moving forward, don't stop.
Yeah, one foot in front of the other, right?
That's right, and keep going and practice. There's a whole set of principles in the book, and one of them is keep moving forward. One of them is practice, practice, practice. Because it doesn't matter how good your plan is, you're going to have to adapt. So you have to adapt and adapt. I knew when I was standing on the skid of the helicopter coming into that landing zone, whether it was a hot insertion or not, I knew as soon as I stepped off on the ground, the plan was going to change, and I was going to have to start adapting to where we were going, how we were going to do it, where I was going to put the airstrikes, whatever. So the more you practice and practice adapting and doing it under stress, the easier it is to do when you get out there, and trying to get to the point where you don't let the bullets become a distraction. They're going to hit you or they're not going to hit you. If you're the leader, you just have to assume you're going to get hit. If you're doing your job, you're going to be exposed and you're probably going to get hit. But you got to do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. Thank you, everybody. For Patreon subscribers, we're going to do a quick Team House After Dark after this. So if you're not a subscriber on our Patreon, you should be. You get special bonus episodes and, some cool stuff. But anyway, thank you, everybody.
Hey guys, it's Jack. I just want to talk to you for a moment about how you can support the show if you've been watching it, enjoying it, but you'd like to get a little bit more involved and help us continue to do this. You can check out our Patreon. It is patreon.com/theteamhouse. And for $5 a month, you can get access to all of these episodes of The Team House ad-free. The same goes with our affiliated podcast, Eyes On, with Andy Milburn, Jason Lyons, Mick Mulroy. That one, you will also get all of those episodes ad-free. And you support the channel and the show, and we really appreciate it. The Patreon members are literally what has helped this company, this small business survive, especially during our early years. And you are what continues to help this thing going, even as we navigate the turbulent world of YouTube advertising. So we really appreciate all of you guys. There's going to be a link down in the description to that Patreon page, and there is also going to be a link to our new merch shop. So if you guys want to go and get some Team House merchandise, we got stickers, and we also have patches. And I should mention, if you sign up for Patreon at $10 a month, we will mail you this patch as well. So we really appreciate that. But they're also for sale on the merch shop. And additionally, they got t-shirts up there, water bottles, a tote bag, coffee mugs, all that good stuff. So please go and check them out and support the show. We really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.